With a final benediction upon us, this resplendent and truly regal being was gone from our sight. We remained seated for a while, and gradually the temple began to empty. I had no inclination to move, and Edwin told us we could stay there as long as we wished. The building was therefore practically empty when I saw the figure of the Egyptian approaching us. He greeted us warmly and asked me if I would be good enough to go with him, as he wished to introduce me to his master. I thanked him for his continued interest in me, and what was my astonishment when he led me into the presence of the man with whom he had entered the sanctuary. I had only been able to see him from my seat, but close to I could see that a pair of dark, sparkling eyes matched his raven hair, which was made the more pronounced by the slight paleness of his complexion. The colors of his attire were blue, white, and gold, and although these were of a very high order, they were not of such intensity as were those of the principal visitor. I had the impression that I was in the presence of a wise man, which indeed he was, and of a man with a great sense of fun and humor. It must be ever remembered that fun and humor are not, and never will be, the sole prerogative of inhabitants of the earth plane, however much they may like to claim a monopoly of them, and however much they may like to deny us our light-hearted merriment. We shall continue to laugh in spite of their possible disapproval. The kind Egyptian presented me to his master, and the latter took me by the hand and smiled upon me in such a manner as to take away completely any feelings of diffidence that I had. In fact, he simply diffused assurance in oneself, and he placed one perfectly at ease. One would, without disrespect, call him the perfect host. When he spoke to me, his voice was beautifully modulated, soft in tone, and so very kindly. His words to me filled me with joy, even as they left me filled with wonder. "My beloved master," he said, "whom you have just seen, bids me tell you that your prayer is answered, and that you shall have your desire. Fear not, for promises that are made here are always fulfilled." Then he told me that I should be asked to wait for a period before the fulfillment, because it was necessary that a chain of events should take place before the right circumstances were brought about in which my desires should find fruition. The time would soon pass, he said, and I could, meanwhile, carry on with my intended work with my friends. If at any time I wished for advice, my good Edwin would always be able to call upon our Egyptian friend, whose guidance was ever at my service. Then he gave me his blessing, and I found myself alone with my thoughts, and with the abiding memory and the celestial fragrance of our resplendent visitors. I rejoined Edwin and Ruth and told them of my happiness. They were both overjoyed at my great good news, which had come from so exalted a source. I felt now that I would like to return to my house, and I asked Edwin and Ruth if they would accompany me. Thither we repaired, and we walked straight into my library. Upon one of the shelves was a particular book, written by myself when upon the earth plane, and which I wished that I had never written. I removed the book that was immediately next to it, leaving the space unoccupied. According to my answered prayer, I should fill that space with another book, written after I had come to spirit, the product of my mind, when I had seen the truth. And linking arms together, we all three walked out into the garden and into the heavenly sunshine of eternity. The flowers. After I had passed, and this is part 2 of the world unseen, and he kind of begins again talking about things he's already been talking about. So he's talked already about the flowers, but he's going to talk even more about them here. And I begin. After I had passed into the spirit world, one of my earliest experiences was the consciousness of a feeling of sadness, not of my own sadness, for I was supremely happy, but of the sadness of others. and I was greatly puzzled to know whence it came. Edwin told me that this sadness was rising from the earth world, and was caused by the sorrow felt at my passing. It soon ceased, however, and Edwin informed me that forgetfulness of me by the earth people had already set in. That experience alone, my good friend, is one that can be relied upon to induce feelings of humility, if no humility before existed. I had, I assure you, set small store by popularity. The discovery, therefore, that my memory was fast fading from the minds of earth people occasioned me no distress whatever. I had written and preached for the good they might do, and that, as I now learnt, was microscopically small. I was told that many people, whose public favor was considerable when they were incarnate, discovered when they had shed their earthly bodies that their fame and high favor had not preceded them into the world of spirit. Gone was the admiration which had been their common everyday experience. It naturally saddened such souls to leave behind them their earthly prominence, and it gave them something of a sense of loneliness, the more so when, in addition, the earth world quickly forgot all about them. My own earthly reputation had been of no great magnitude, but I had managed to carve a niche for myself among my co-religionists. My transition had been calm and peaceful, and unattended by any unpleasant circumstances. It was no wrench for me to leave the earth world. I had no ties but my work. I was therefore greatly blessed. Edwin told me of others whose passing was extremely unhappy, and whose spiritual state upon their arrival here was still more unhappy. Many who were great upon earth found themselves very small in spirit, and many who were unknown upon earth found themselves here so spiritually well known as to be almost overcome by it. It is not all by any means who are destined for the beautiful realms of eternal sunshine and summer. I have already given you a glimpse of those realms of darkness and semi-darkness, where all is cold and bleak and barren, and wherein souls have their abode, souls who can rise out of that darkness if they so wish it, and will work for that end. There are many who spend their heaven visiting these dim regions to try to draw out of their misery some of those unfortunates, and to set them upon the path of light and spiritual progression. It has been my privilege to go with Edwin and Ruth to visit the dark places beyond the belt of mist that separates them from the light. It is not my purpose to take you into those realms of misery and unhappiness just yet. Later on, I shall hope to give you some account of our experiences. For the moment, there are other and pleasanter matters upon which I should like to speak. There are many souls upon the earth plane who seek to probe the manifold mysteries of life. They propound theories of diverse kinds purporting to explain this or that, theories which in the course of time come to be looked upon as great truths. Some of these hypotheses are as remote from the truth as it is possible to imagine. Others are merely nonsensical, but there are also people who refuse even to think for themselves, and who stolidly uphold the belief that while they are incarnate, they are not meant to know anything of the life of spirit that lies before them all. They affirm that it is not God's purpose that they should be told of such matters, and that when they come to spirit, they will know all things. There are two extremes of thought, the theorists and the partisans of the closed door. Both schools receive some severe shocks when they enter spirit lands to live for all time. Individuals with strange theories find those theories demolished by the simple fact of finding themselves faced with the absolute truth. They discover that life in the spirit world is not nearly so complex as they would have had it be. In so many instances, it is vastly simpler than life upon earth, because we do not have the problems that constantly harass and worry earth people. Problems, for example, of religion and politics, which throughout the ages have caused social upheavals that are still having their repercussions in the earth world at the present time. The student of occult matters is apt to fall into the same error as the student of religious matters. He makes assertions every bit as dogmatic as those that emanate from Orthodox religion, assertions that are mostly as far from the truth. The period of time in which I have lived in the spirit world is as nothing, by comparison with some of the great souls with whom it has been my privilege to speak. But they have shown me something of their vast store of knowledge, things, that is, that my mind was capable of understanding. For the rest, I, in company with millions of others, am perfectly contented to wait for the day when my intelligence is sufficiently advanced to grasp the greater truths. A matter that gives rise to some perplexity concerns the flowers that we have in the spirit world. Some would ask, why flowers? What is their purpose or significance? Have they symbolic meanings? Let us put the same questions to earth people concerning the flowers that grow up on the earth plane. Have the earthly flowers any special significance? Have they some symbolical meaning? The answer to both questions is no. Flowers are given to the earth world to help to beautify it, and for the delight and enjoyment of those who behold them. The fact that they serve other useful purposes is an added reason for their existence. Flowers are essentially beautiful, evolved from this supreme creative mind, given to us as a precious gift, showing us their colorings in their formations and in their perfumes, an infinitesimally small expression of that great mind. You have this glory upon the earth plane. Are we to be deprived of it in the spirit world because it is considered that flowers are rather earthly? Because no deep, abstruse meaning can be assigned to their existence? We have the most glorious flowers here, some of them like the old familiar, cherished blooms of the earth plane, others known only in the spirit world, but all alike are superb, the perpetual joy of all of us who are surrounded with them. They are divine creations, each single flower breathing the pure air of spirit, and upheld by their Creator, and by all of us here in the love that we shower upon them. Had we no wish for them, an impossible supposition, they would be swept away. And what should we have in their stead? Where, otherwise, would the great wealth of color come from which the flowers provide? And it is not only the smaller growing flowers that we have here. There is no single flowering tree or shrub that the mind can recall that we do not possess, flourishing in superabundance and perfection, as well as those trees and shrubs that are to be seen nowhere else but in the spirit world. They are always in bloom. They never fade or die, and their perfumes are diffused into the air, where they act like a spiritual tonic upon us all. They are at one with us, and we are at one with them. When we are first introduced to the flowers and trees, and all the luxuriance of spirit nature, we instantly perceive something that earthly nature never seemed to possess, and that is an inherent intelligence within all growing things. Earthly flowers, although living, make no immediate personal response when one comes into close touch with them, but here it is vastly different. Spirit flowers are imperishable, and that should at once suggest more than mere life within them. And spirit flowers, as well as all other forms of nature, are created by the great Father of the universe through his agents in the realms of spirit. They are part of the immense stream of life that flows directly from him, and that flows through every species of botanic growth. That stream never ceases, never falters, and it is, moreover, continuously fed by the admiration and love which we in this world of spirit gratefully shed upon such choice gifts of the Father. Is it then to be wondered at, when we take the tiniest blossom within our hand, that we should feel such an influx of magnetic power, such a revivifying force, such an upliftment of one's very being, when we know in truth that those forces for our betterment are coming directly from the source of all good? No, there is no other meaning behind our spirit flowers than the expressed beauty of the Father of the universe, and surely that is enough. He has attached no strange symbolism to his thoughtless creations. Why should we? A large majority of the flowers are not meant to be picked. To pick them is not to destroy them. It is to cut off that which is in direct contact with the Father. It is possible to gather them. Of course, no disastrous calamity would follow if one did. But whoever picked them would certainly regret it very deeply. Think of some small article that you possess and treasure above all your other earthly possessions, and then consider deliberately destroying it. It would cause you extreme sadness to do so, although the loss incurred might be intrinsically trifling. Such would be your emotions when you needlessly cull those spirit flowers that are not intended for gathering. But there are blooms, and plenty of them, that are expressly there to be picked, and many of us do so, taking them into our houses just as we used to do on earth, and for the same reason. These severed flowers will survive their removal for just so long as we wish to retain them. When our interest in them begins to wane, they will quickly disintegrate. There will be no unsightly withered remnants, for there can be no death in a land of eternal life. We simply perceive that our flowers have gone, and we can then replace them if we so wish. The soil. To obtain an adequate idea of the ground upon which we walk, and on which our houses and buildings are erected, you must clear your mind of all mundane conceptions. First of all, we have no roads, as they are known on earth. We have broad, extensive thoroughfares in our cities and elsewhere, but they are not paved with a composite substance to give them hardness and durability for the passage of a constant stream of traffic. We have no traffic, and our roads are covered with the thickest and greenest of grass, as soft to the feet as a bed of fresh moss. It is on these that we walk. The grass never grows beyond the condition of being well trimmed, and yet it is living grass. It is always retained at the same serviceable level, perfect to walk upon, and perfect in appearance. In such places where smaller paths are desirable, and where grass would seem unsuitable, we have such pavement as are customary in the earth world, but they are constructed of a very different materials. The paving is for the most part a description of stone, but it is without the usual dull drabness of color. It closely resembles the alabaster-like material of which so many of the buildings are constructed. The colors vary, but they are all of delicate pastel shades. This stone, like the grass, is very pleasant to walk upon, though naturally it is not as soft, but there is a certain quality about it, a certain springiness, if one may so term it, something like the resilience of certain earthly timber that is utilized in the making of floors. That is the only way in which I can convey any idea of the difference between our earthly stone and spirit stone. There is never, of course, any unsightly discoloration to be observed upon the surface of this stone walks. They always preserve their initial freshness. Often the pavements reveal a network of delightful designs, formed by the use of different coloring materials and blended harmoniously with their immediate surroundings. As one approaches the boundaries to the higher realm, the pavements become noticeably more translucent in character, and they seem to lose some of their appearance of solidity, though indeed they are solid enough. When one draws near the boundaries of the lower realms, the pavements become heavy in appearance. They begin to lose their color until they look leaden and opaque, and they have the semblance of extreme solidity, almost like the granite of the earth plane.